Welcome everyone to Firstpost America. We're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C. And over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the U.S. and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. Beijing says it firmly opposes President Donald Trump's decision to create a blacklist of countries that unjustly detain Americans, which Washington warns could include China. At least 16 people die in Nepal after police opened fire on protesters demonstrating against the government's ban on social media and the culture of corruption in the country. Israel's defense minister tells Hamas to lay down its arms or face annihilation after President Donald Trump said the militant group must accept a deal to release hostages in Gaza. Thailand's former prime minister arrives in the capital Bangkok a day ahead of the court verdict that could potentially send him back to prison. And Cambodia and the Philippines vow to strengthen cooperation in various fields as Filipino President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. visited the country. During his trip, Marcos Jr. met Cambodia's prime minister and held key talks on trade, aviation, and security. Over the weekend, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called the relationship between Washington and New Delhi positive and forward-looking. The Prime Minister said that he reciprocates President Trump's sentiments and the positive assessment of India-U.S. ties. Now, his remarks came just after President Donald Trump said that India and the U.S. have a special relationship and praised the Prime Minister and their friendship. President Trump on Friday insisted that America has not lost India and said that India and the U.S. will always be friends.
I always will. I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about. We just have moments on occasion.
Now, the president did admit disappointment over New Delhi's energy deals with Moscow, pointing to punitive tariffs.
You know, I've been very disappointed that India would be buying so much oil, as you know, from Russia. And I let them know that. We put a very big tariff on India, 50% tariff, very high tariff. I get along very well with Modi, as you know. He's great. He was here a couple of months ago.
Now, White House aide Peter Navarro, who has repeatedly lashed out at India over its trade policies with Russia, launched another attack against New Delhi on social media, this time accusing India of profiteering from Russian oil imports. Fact-checking note, however, corrected him, saying India's Russian oil purchases are for energy security and they do not violate sanctions. The fact-checking went on to add that while India has some tariffs, the U.S. in fact has a trade surplus with the country. Navarro responded to the fact-checking, slamming Elon Musk for letting propaganda into people's posts. He described the fact-checking as crap and also ran an online poll asking whether the platform should let what he called Indian special interests interfere in U.S. debates. Elon Musk later defended his platform's fact-checking system, making clear that Community Notes corrects everyone without exception and ensures that people decide the narrative. Now, Navarro has been attacking India continuously, especially after Trump imposed secondary tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. And hours after the punitive tariffs on India went into effect, Navarro labeled the Russia-Ukraine conflict as Modi's war. He also accused India of running a profiteering scheme by continuing to import Russian oil and labeled India the Maharaj of tariffs. Now, recently, he called India a laundromat for the Kremlin and made a callous remark.
Before Putin invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, India didn't buy Russian oil to speak of. Very, very small amounts. What happened? Well, the Russian refiners went in and got into bed with big oil in India. Putin gives Modi a discount on the crude. They refine it and they ship it to Europe, Africa, and Asia at a big premium, and they make a ton of money. Now, what's wrong with that picture? Well, it fuels the Russian war machine. India is nothing but a laundromat for the Kremlin. It kills Ukrainians, and what do we have to do as taxpayers?
Now, strains between the U.S. and India emerged when President Trump imposed tariffs of up to 50% on Indian imports, accusing New Delhi of fueling Moscow's deadly attacks on Ukraine by purchasing Russian oil. Speculation of a deepening rift intensified when Trump remarked on Friday that India, alongside Russia, seems to have been lost to China. And as things stand, both sides continue to emphasize, however, their personal rapport and the importance of the relationship. Whether India and the U.S. can move past these tensions, however, and find a common ground, that, of course, remains to be seen. And in South America, tensions are escalating sharply between the United States and Venezuela after a deadly U.S. military strike in the Caribbean. Vice President JD Vance has now defended the move, dismissing criticism that it violated international law. Taking to X, he wrote, quote, "Killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military," end quote. The strike took place last week when U.S. forces sank a vessel in international waters. Washington said the boat belonged to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which the Trump administration has labeled a foreign terrorist organization. And while 11 people were killed, President Donald Trump hailed the actions as a warning to others, claiming massive amounts of drugs were found on board. And taking to Truth Social, Trump said, quote, "Anybody thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America, beware."
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. And everybody fully understands that.
Now, when Vance was called out by his critics for his remarks, he doubled down, saying he doesn't care what people call it. He also mocked Democrats, accusing them of wanting to send kids to die in Russia, while Republicans focused on protecting people. Now, Vance's rhetoric sparked backlash on Capitol Hill as well. Republican Senator Rand Paul blasted Vance's remarks as despicable, warning against celebrating extrajudicial killings. He compared Vance's stance to ignoring the lessons of To Kill a Mockingbird. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has stepped up its presence in the Caribbean with more than 4,000 U.S. Marines and sailors, 7 warships, a nuclear submarine, and now 10 F-35 stealth fighters in Puerto Rico, part of the buildup. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth vowed the campaign won't stop with just this strike. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio added that more traffickers would face the same fate.
We have the absolute and complete authority to conduct that. First of all, just the defense of the American people alone. 100,000 Americans were killed each year under the previous administration because of an open border and open drug traffic flow. That is an assault on the American people.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, on the other hand, has condemned the strike, calling it fabricated justification for regime change. And speaking at a military base in Caracas, dressed in camouflage, he accused Washington of trying to stage an invasion and announced the mobilization of civilian militias.
There is no justification for it. It is not true, I say to the people of the United States. It was not true that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. What they are saying about Venezuela is not true. It is not true. It is a dead end they are getting themselves into. Venezuela has always been willing to talk, but just as we are willing to talk, we demand respect for our country, for our people.
Now the clash is only intensified further when 2 Venezuelan F-16s flew over an American warship in the region, a move the Pentagon labeled highly provocative. In response, President Trump threatened that Venezuelan jets would be, quote-unquote, shot down if they endangered U.S. ships.
What happens if Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again?
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want.
And now, with rising military deployments, fiery rhetoric from President Trump and Vice President Vance, and the Venezuelan leader digging in with militias, the crisis shows no signs of easing. The windy city of Chicago is now on high alert as protests flare all across the city. Residents gathered near the Great Lakes Naval Base and downtown streets denouncing federal plans to send in National Guard as well as immigration agents. The unrest follows President Donald Trump's dramatic Truth Social post showing him in military uniform over a burning Chicago skyline and renaming the Defense Department the Department of War. With troops already active in Washington and other cities, Chicago is now bracing for possible federal action. We bring you the latest development in our next report.
Chicago is on edge. On September 6th, hundreds of protesters marched near the Great Lakes Naval Base. Others filled downtown streets, waving banners reading, "No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here."
Sending the National Guard and sending ICE agents here to our community is a direct threat to not only us, but our community. It is us, it is our neighbors, it is our friends, it affects everyone. And so we are here just to make sure that we are showing organization, that we are showing support as community, we are uniting, and we are showing no fear. We are not standing down, and we are uniting.
The unrest comes after Trump posted a dramatic message on Truth Social. "I love the smell of deportations in the morning," he wrote, parodying the 1979 Vietnam War film Apocalypse Now. Above the words was an image of Trump in military uniform, flames behind him, the Chicago skyline in chaos. He called the Defense Department the Department of War, following his executive order to rename it the day before.
We've been talking about this Department of War. So we won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
Trump has repeatedly threatened to send National Guard troops to several Democratic-run cities, including Chicago, Baltimore, New Orleans, and Portland.
Speaking of that,
he says the deployments are needed to combat rising crime and to clean up our cities. Even city and state leaders have pushed back. Illinois governor called Trump a wannabe dictator and refused to request federal help. Mayor Brandon Johnson said the president's threats violate the Constitution. In fact, in Washington, D.C., the Guard is already on the streets. More than 2,000 troops patrol downtown and tourist areas. Federal agents, including immigration and customs enforcement, operate alongside them. Trump says the mission has restored law, order, and public safety. And over 1,650 arrests have been made since August 7th. But in Chicago, concern over federal intervention is growing. Latino communities, particularly in Little Village, fear ICE raids could target residents during upcoming Mexican Independence Day celebrations. Some festivals were postponed, and residents say businesses have suffered as anxiety spreads. Migrant advocacy groups warn that Trump's threats are hurting everyone, not just undocumented immigrants.
He wants everyone to be afraid. He loves to see that people are afraid. That's why he's bullying the most vulnerable. But no, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I think most of us, we need to move. We need to have action and unite, because together we can do this.
Yet Trump insists we're not going to war.
Well, why would you use the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Crime statistics, however, add complexity. Over Labor Day weekend, Chicago saw a drive-by shooting injuring 8 people near police headquarters. But overall, homicides and shootings have fallen by over 30% in the first half of 2025. Local activists, pastors, and community organizations are mobilizing. They are circulating protest schedules, preparing to demonstrate within hours if troops or federal agents arrive.
And we held a rally at Broadview last week when the cops tried to tell us to leave, when ICE tried to tell us to leave. We stayed, and they were forced to accept our presence. And so they know that we're strong, we know that we're strong, and that they're paper tigers.
The question remains, will the National Guard arrive in Chicago? And if so, how will the city respond? Across America, eyes are watching, tensions are rising, and the next move could change the streets of a major city forever.
What was supposed to be a regular trip to Target turned into a tearful spectacle for an Indian woman earlier this year. The incident, which has now gone viral, shows her pushing a cart loaded with unpaid items straight past the checkout. When police stopped her, she broke down in hysterical sobs and gasps, and officers tried to question her. In the video, she even admits she planned to resell the stolen items. And this comes just months after another Indian woman was accused of stealing nearly $13,000 worth of items from the Target store in Illinois. Our next report has more.
It's not every day that a trip to Target ends in tears, gasps, and a viral police body cam video. But that's exactly what happened when an Indian woman was caught shoplifting at a store in the U.S. earlier this year. The footage released this month, dated January 15th, shows the woman sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for air, and clutching her chest as officers tried to calm her down. One staffer informed the police that the woman had been in that state for the last 40 minutes. One officer urged the woman to take a deep breath before they start their conversation. When asked if she spoke English, the woman hesitated before replying and said, "Not very good." She revealed she can speak Gujarati and stated that it is a language spoken in India. Despite her nervous situation, she declined the offer of an interpreter. Meanwhile, store staff wasted no time presenting CCTV footage that showed her causally pushing a cart full of items right past the checkout without paying. The staffers present also noted that she was a regular customer. Things didn't look great from there. The woman confessed she intended to resell some of the items. Officers present at the scene told her that she would have to appear in court, as this won't end with an apology. The officers repeatedly asked her if she wants to tell them if something is happening at her home. The conversation ended with the official saying that she cannot visit the store again, and if she does, it will be seen as trespassing. And believe it or not, this wasn't an isolated case. In May, another woman landed in hot water after allegedly stealing items roughly worth $13,000 from a Target store in Illinois. She reportedly spent over 7 hours inside the store before trying to leave. In the police body cam footage, she could be heard apologizing profusely and even offering to pay.
Can I pay for this and finish it?
To which a police officer shot back by saying, "If it is allowed to steal things in India." The May incident triggered an official warning from the U.S. Embassy in India. In a strongly worded advisory, it reminded travelers that theft, burglary, or assault in the United States could lead not just to arrest, but also visa revocation. Worse, such offenses can make one permanently ineligible for future U.S. visas. So while Target might be a shopper's paradise for bargains, the takeaway here is simple. Unpaid shopping carts don't just cost money, they could cost your American dream.
And finally, Tesla has put forward a proposal that could potentially result in the largest pay package ever granted to a corporate leader in American history, with its board unveiling a plan worth $1 trillion for CEO Elon Musk. The proposal would grant Musk compensation entirely in Tesla stock rather than cash. In the recent board meetings, Musk reportedly threatened to quit if he didn't receive certain promises, while the committee wanted to end his foray into politics and secure his commitment to Tesla. Now he's demanding at least 25% voting control in the company, and shareholders will vote on the plan on November 6th, but it's already been reviewed and approved by a committee of independent directors. Now, if approved, the plan could make Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire and increase his stake in the company by nearly 12%, putting him in a position of even greater influence. But to receive the shares, Musk would have to achieve a series of performance targets over the next decade. Tesla's valuation would need to rise by $2 trillion, eventually reaching $8.6 trillion by the end of the 10-year plan. The company would also need to deliver 20 million vehicles during that period, 10 times the number it delivered just last year. And while simultaneously rolling out 1 million self-driving robo-taxis and producing 1 million humanoid AI robots. Now, Musk would also be required to remain at Tesla for at least 7.5 years before he can cash out any of the shares, and he would have to put forward a succession plan to reassure investors about the long-term stability of the company. The board's proxy statement spoke of the importance of keeping Musk focused on Tesla going forward. And now Musk still remains active in politics, and despite his falling out with President Donald Trump, he's announced a plan to form a third political party. Now, according to reports, Musk currently owns 410 million Tesla shares worth around $139 billion, along with stakes in SpaceX, XAI, and X, bringing his net worth to a total of $378 billion. The recent pay packages is the latest in a series of plans to keep Musk focused, however, on Tesla. And in August, the board approved a $29 billion interim package to retain Musk throughout 2030. Now, back in 2018, he was awarded a $55.8 billion pay package, which later drew a lawsuit with allegations that the CEO and the company had breached their fiduciary duties. And the new $1 trillion proposal relies on restricted shares rather than options to compensate Musk. Now, these give him additional voting rights as soon as he earns them rather than waiting until they vest, which is a key step in getting him toward the 25% control he's threatened to quit over. The company is currently facing slowing demand, however, for electric vehicles, rising competition from Chinese manufacturers, and significant pressure to deliver on promises of technological breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and robotics. And as the November vote approaches, investors and the markets are watching to see if this $1 trillion pay package becomes, in fact, a reality. From all of us here at Firstpost America, we certainly thank all of you for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks, everyone, for watching.